thank you for inviting me. My name is Ida Lindbergh. I'm a regional planner at the Gothenburg Region, and actually also like working 50-50 right now for the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management. But for the presentation today, I represent mainly Gothenburg Region. And I will present one of the case studies within an Interreg project, Land Sea Act, that we have been working on. It's ending now in the end of the year. Just shortly, I saw you entered some information about the Land Sea Act project in the invitation as well. But just shortly about the project, we are 11 partners from 6 different countries, and I know that you will also hear from some of the other case studies on next Monday, with the main aim to find solutions to marine spatial planning and blue growth challenges around the Baltic Sea. And the main output of the overall project is a multi-level governance agenda on blue growth and spatial planning that's being put together as we speak. They're working very hard to get all the parts going. And I included the link to the project so you can find all the results there in not too long time. So the Gothenburg region, just to give you some background, is a cooperative organization that unites 13 member municipalities in Western Sweden. So Gothenburg region exists because these municipalities want and see a need to cooperate around many different questions. So we promote cooperation over municipal borders and provide a forum for exchange of ideas and experience within the region. We work a lot like network-based work. And we have 2 kind of strategic documents that are focused on regional planning and a sustainable regional structure. The structural illustration from 2008, which is both like an image of where we want to go in the big city region of Gothenburg, but also includes agreements on a joint responsibility for a sustainable regional structure. And sustainable growth is more or less more specification of the vision, I guess. But the development and the conservation of the unique values in the coastal zone is kind of highlighted in both these documents as a responsibility, not only for the coastal municipalities, but for the entire region. So we, to give you some background to the Land Sea Act project and our kind of the context that we've been working in, is that we worked during a 3-year-long previous project to develop a strategy specifically focused on the coastal zone, with the aim to kind of find a future social and regional development based sustainable physical structure. And this was developed during 3 years together with municipal officials within planning, environment and business development, and politically approved in these 8 coastal and island municipalities on highest political level. And it includes joint agreements kind of within 6 themes or thematic areas, and also a map image that you can see on the right hand side that displays central elements in what we together see as a future sustainable physical structure of the coastal zone. And this in turn is the aim with this is to function as a guiding document for the spatial planning in the municipalities in the coastal and marine areas. And just to pinpoint 1 or 2 of the joint agreements that are included in this strategic documents, is this that we agree to support sustainable maritime industries that contribute to value creation and employment in the coastal zone, and that we agree to create an accessible and attractive archipelago and coastal zone for both local recreation, outdoor life and tourism. And these are perhaps the 2 joint agreements that most strongly connects to blue economy aspects. So the Land Sea Act project was for us an opportunity to continue working with the joint agreement in the strategy. So the previous project also kind of concluded that we need more knowledge to find good preconditions for development of maritime businesses, and to facilitate kind of an integration of blue growth or blue economy aspects in coastal planning. And I was kind of asked to give a little insight in the planning context of Sweden, even if what we have been working on is not like hardcore physical planning. I want to mention that in Sweden, the municipalities have the main responsibility for planning according to the Swedish Planning and Building Act. And the regulations also include like kind of strict regulations for consultation at different stages in the planning process at the municipal level, about how to do it, when in the process, and with who. Just as an example, there's a requirement to consult with county administrative board, which is on the regional level, regional administration and other concerned municipalities. When you do your comprehensive planning, you have to consider different actors at different levels that could be affected in some level by the planning. But on the regional, when we're working with regional planning in the Gothenburg region, we are not working according to Planning and Building Acts. It's more of a joint agreement to create knowledge, to plan better on the municipal level, and to focus on issues that are like crossing municipal borders, such as coastal zone issues and boating issues in our part of what we've been working with. So consultations in our perspective is rather to gain better results and better knowledge than like a requirement, like a legal requirement. But what I also want to mention in this respect is, when speaking about the Swedish planning system, is that there, since 2015, when the MSP directive became Swedish law, there's also a physical planning overlap. Let's see if I can get my eraser. In the sea area. So the municipal planning stretches out to 12 nautical miles, as I think Andrea mentioned, in the sea area. And the national maritime spatial plans overlap the local planning level in quite a large, like 6 kilometer wide area. Which means that there can be at least 2 plans for the same area. And it's not yet really, as some of you might know, the Swedish MSP has not been decided on government level yet, but so it's not yet been like judicially tested which plan is would overrule one another, but the national plan MSPs are guiding for the municipal planning. So, and just to show you the pilot case area that we have been working with, this is the big city of Gothenburg, and we have been working with 8 municipalities. Here you can also see the overlap on the map. This is the border for the exclusive economic zone. Territorial waters here. So the overlap is quite vast areas, but historically the municipalities haven't established plans for their sea areas in such a large extent. But with the adoption of the MSP directive and the planning, the national MSP process, they've started to some of them at least has started and adopted plans also for the sea areas. Well, our pilot case within Land Sea Act project aims to gain a better understanding of the preconditions for and the spatial aspects of the maritime businesses in the region. And the aim with that was to create kind of a basis for a development of a regional maritime strategy. So I will talk you through 3 of our pilot case activities, a GIS mapping that we did of maritime businesses, an interview study, and a mapping that we did through participatory GIS method. Yes, to get a spatial overview of the blue economy in our region, we conducted this GIS mapping of maritime businesses. And I guess we are quite spoiled in Sweden with statistics and data. So the mapping is based on SNI codes, which corresponds to the EU NACE codes, which is like business codes for different sectors. And we selected them with basis in the Swedish maritime strategy, and also did like an overall analysis and a sectoral analysis divided into different sectors. And the data source for the mapping, the GIS mapping, the analysis was register-based labor market statistics from Statistics Sweden, our national statistics office, on day and night populations for these SNI codes per 500 meters squares. So just to give you like an overview of the entire pilot case area with all the, I'm sorry, these are not translated and it will be difficult for you to see them anyway, but this is an overview of all the sectors involved. And you can see quite a concentration to the Gothenburg area, but also the islands of Öckerö and Hönö, which has a strong commercial fishing industry. And just to zoom in a bit in the Gothenburg area, we can see the day population for the entire blue economy, with concentration to central Gothenburg, where we have the port of Gothenburg and the fishing ports with surrounded industries. I'll kind of jump. This might be interesting to see also the night population, which more or less corresponds to the workforce supporting the businesses. So it's a bit more dispersed image and a bit more concentration to the islands of Öckerö, which kind of reflects that there's a strong concentration of people working within the maritime industries in the islands of the island municipality of Öckerö. I think I will just jump on to the sector-wise analysis that we did on with the GIS mapping. On the left, you can see day population connected to fishing, aquaculture, and processing. And to the right, it's the day population for maritime transport, where there's a high concentration to the Gothenburg area. And looking at the fishing industry, we see a much more dispersed and a lot more concentration more out to the coastline. And here is also the importance for the island municipalities is visible here. We also did an analysis on tourism, which was one of the conclusions kind of from the work package in our Landscape project. The work package that we have been included in that's focused on blue economy is the difficulty with delimiting the blue economy and how to define it. So when we did this analysis of the tourism industry, even if we did a kind of a delimitation, we also get data from more inland. But also here we see a much more dispersed image of the concentration. Jumping onto the interview study, we also wanted to increase our knowledge on the needs of the maritime businesses in the area to actually get their view on certain aspects. So we did an interview study with 130 small and medium-sized maritime businesses, and small and medium-sized are also the businesses that are more difficult to reach or to get the view of in other processes. So we wanted to focus on small and medium size. And the selection again was based on SNI codes, doing structured telephone interviews that focused on most important market and networks, supply competence, local cooperation and dependence, and future need of space and facilities, and also more overall future development. And I will just show you some of the results just for you to get an idea of the most important aspects. Here you see quite a what do you call it? I'm losing the English word. A dominance from the Gothenburg side, but it also kind of reflects the size of Gothenburg as compared to the other municipalities. And this is also the distribution between sectors. And I want to compare that to an analysis that was made within the Landscape project by the Hamburg Institute, looking at official statistics at EU level on blue economy, where coastal tourism for our NUTS area, as it's called, Västsverige, where coastal tourism is a very dominant sector within the blue economy. And in our interview study, it represented 36%, so it didn't really correspond to the EU level distribution of sectors. But anyhow, the most important markets for the businesses that we interviewed was more or less local, regional, to some extent national markets. And we also asked about meeting places where many state that they participate in meeting places that includes businesses within the same sector, but also in a different sector, and to some extent also have kind of meeting places where they get to discuss with politicians or public actors. But when like developing their answers, many companies also experienced that there is a lack of meeting places with politicians and public actors. For example, when discussing issues on climate adaptation or access and rent levels for case, but also connected to marketing issues and infrastructure issues, but also help and advice on how to meet legal requirements on environmental or permit issues. And here are just some quotes. I think I will skip them. They just kind of say the same thing as I just did. And we also kind of wanted to capture how important is, how place dependent are the companies, and how dependent are they on the like local community. And up to 74% of companies state that they're cooperating locally. And within some of the municipalities, the number is as high as 90 to 100%. And two of the municipalities that are on this higher level are island municipalities. So the blue economy and the being an island municipality kind of corresponds. 63% of the companies say that they are completely or partly dependent on their location. Mainly the companies within the sea as a natural resource, which is fishing, aquaculture, processing, and marine technology and production, which is both building and connected industries. And the more location dependent a company considers itself, the greater proportion of permanent residents they have as their customers. And we also had a study from 2014 that demonstrates the same pattern. And 60% of the companies also are partly dependent or on local commercial services, especially within the tourism industry. I think I will, we can stop here for a minute. We also asked about the need for land and facilities. Many of the companies see that they no change within the next few years, and some see a need for land for expanding their businesses, and some see a need for land to relocate their businesses. So some conclusions from the interview study is that the blue economy, it's a diverse set of businesses with different preconditions that also needs to be highlighted further. There may be like a point in separating sectors to a larger extent. The access to land is very important, of course, for development, especially these spaces connecting land and sea, such as port or quays or harbors. But also that the spatial needs, looking at spatial needs on a regional level is interesting, because some of the companies also experience that they have to move their business to other parts when they don't. It's not possible to expand their business on the location that they're at. Yes, I think I will try speeding up a bit. Also in the discussion with the municipalities, they expressed the need for a more in-depth picture of the need for land and water areas of the blue the businesses within the marine and maritime sector. And they also stated like a specific characteristics of the maritime business is that they are place dependent, which goes hand in hand with the dependence on the ecosystem services of a certain place. Like supporting that an ecosystem-based approach is needed. And also the municipalities stated the need to diversify the knowledge on the view of the maritime industry. It's a range of sectors with different needs and possibilities. I think I will jump on to the last part, mapping of spatial claims. That was a participatory GIS mapping that we did, a web survey, both with maritime businesses and business developers within the municipalities, where we wanted to capture changes in the need for land and water areas, risks regarding access to land and water areas, but mostly focused on potential for sharing space, and if we could discern some differences between sectors when it comes looking at potential for sharing space. Are there differences in what type of land and water also that they see a need for? The study we had a geographical and sector-wise spread in the study, but kind of a limited number of responses, around 60. So it's difficult to draw any overall conclusions, but we got at least some idea of and got to test the method also. Just to show you an overview. Yes, I included. I think we didn't have this image translated before, but on the left-hand side there's a map where the colors represent the primary sector and the size of the dots represent the number of employees within that sectors. And on the right-hand side it's an intensity map which shows the respondents as where the respondents are situated or where they have drawn in their spatial claims, and the black line drawn areas are the municipalities that have drawn in the identified areas for development. And this overlay that we did also was a basis for choosing spots or respondents for deeper interviews. So we did a GIS mapping in a web survey and deep interviews with some specific businesses. So just to conclude a bit, when it comes to the need or claim for space, perhaps non-surprisingly, proximity to the coast is seen as crucial, and almost all respondents state the need for access both to land and water areas in the coastal zone for their own facilities. And the coast is also stated as important due to the double accessibility both from land and from sea. So the port areas and the infrastructure connected to the port areas is seen as crucial for development. And the greatest future need that the businesses stated is on own facilities on land. To a lesser extent, they express a need for water areas. And also interesting from our perspective is that the interest stretches over municipal borders. So there's a need to have a regional perspective. Half of the companies also see a need to a larger extent use public areas along the coast, which could be a potential conflict of interests further on. And another aspect is also that companies with few employees, an example would be aquaculture, can also have vast area claims or area needs. And on the other hand, companies with many employees can have, such as perhaps the processing industry could have quite a bit more limited area claims, but many employees. And when it comes to the issue of sharing space, many of the businesses in the study state that they already share space to some extent, mainly tourism industry and marine technology and production, and mainly with non-competing operations. And business in the study primarily see a potential in sharing land and water areas with other businesses within the same sector. But when it comes to, again, leisure and tourism and marine technology and production, they also see a potential to share space with businesses in other sectors, and also to a larger extent with public interests, such as recreation and fishing. What we also found is that there can be both practical financial, such as higher insurance costs, and legal obstacles for sharing space. And I just want to conclude. I think I am sticking kind of within time. As I mentioned earlier as well, blue economy is a diverse set of businesses with different preconditions, which needs to be highlighted further. On an EU level, it might be like a point in like analyzing the blue economy as a whole, but especially on regional and local level, could be need to diverse the images of the blue economy. And as I also mentioned before, the interface between land and sea area, the interface between land and sea, the access point to the sea, ports, quays, and ramps is very important for blue economy development. These are also have large potential for demonstration activities and multifunctionality. And as you, of course, also know, there's a vast competition for space close to sea, so sharing of space will be crucial. And the recommendation from case study report is that integrating this perspective early on in the planning process. An unfinished sentence, I see, is a good precondition for development of the maritime business. But also highlighting trade-offs early on in the planning process, and including understanding of different perspectives is very important. And cooperation has been like the key word along the whole case studies. So to develop formalized and also informal cooperation, both between businesses and public actors, in between businesses, and also between municipalities on blue economy aspects is important. But also a message that we are sending from the work package as a whole is that framing the blue economy, we need to that the limitation is a challenge, and when analyzing and developing knowledge on the blue economy, that can have big implications for the results. Perhaps especially when it comes to coastal tourism, it's very difficult to delimit what is coastal tourism and what is not. Yes, I think that was my final slide.